Welcome to Bloody Besties, your true crime podcast with best friends who have known each other since elementary school. We are your hosts, forensic scientist Ruby Wilde, presenting little known cases to
me, Melissa May, the daughter of police officers and true crime addict, who will be the one to bring you fun facts about our episode. So sit back, relax. Just kidding. Stay sharp, buckle up. We hope you enjoy the ride.
All right, Mel, are you ready for this? Because I gave you another topic. This one, all it says is abduction.
Yes, you gave me abduction. So, Ruby, can you guess what percent of reportedly missing children make it back home?
Alive?
Just said make it back home,
Well,
according to Megan's Law.
I work forensics. A lot of what I do is like aftermath and bringing a body home. That counts, but
Okay.
okay. If we're talking
Dead or alive, let's do it.
Dead or alive, I would say 60%.
99.8% of missing children come home.
What? Okay, but there are a few local ones
that are still missing.
I just don't get it.
I hate it.
Can't really talk about them.
So this is good news if you're part of the majority.
Yes.
But not as good if you're part of the minority of this statistic.
Right.
Regardless of that, if your child goes missing, you have very good odds your child will be returned to you. So I'm assuming they mean make it home alive.
I would assume so. Well, because a lot of them, they say, like, when it comes to abduction, a lot of the times it's familial or something along those lines. So
definitely the parents over custody and battles. I've known people that have had their children kidnapped by the other spouse.
Me too.
And cross state lines.
Unfortunately, one of them I share some genetics with, and I'm not claiming them. I've disowned them. But they did that with their child, and that's why I've disowned them, because I do not agree with that. But their other parent was able to get them back. Good. Took a couple years.
Wow, that's a long time.
Moved across state line. It was like a whole thing. She's back where she belongs. Again, not going to get into specifics about that because my family's going to listen to this show. Yeah, I mean, Amber Alerts help with that a lot. Like you said, Megan's Law, where you get to look up people. And have you ever looked up how many offenders are in your area?
Yes. Back in California, we had a horse trainer that is on the Megan's Law list. So I went on there to just see. And so that was the only time I went on. And yeah, he was on there. And I believe we have one in Middle Tennessee, a horse trainer. So check your horse trainers out, people. If you're sending your kids to get their lessons on these horses, go to Megan's Law, because there might be some sketchy horse people out there.
Have you looked around your house currently?
Lord, no.
Me neither.
I love my little block of 4 houses, and I want to keep it that way.
I was going to say,
I know somebody shot my cat's leg off, so
yeah, I know. And killed Dexter.
Don't try to kill rodents with bait blocks, because if that mouse or rat eats that, it's gonna transfer that poison to owls, to cat. Ruby, you were there while my cat was dying of poisoning.
Yes. And here's the thing is, I am not a huge fan of cats, mainly because I call them little balls of death, because I'm so allergic to them. And I'm sure that you can hear it in some episodes, have asthma, and it does cause asthma attacks in me. But barn cats are just different creatures, and I love them so much. And this one, she had named Dexter because he killed so many mice.
He killed about 9 mice in one night. We lined them up on a board for a mugshot with him, with all the dead bodies.
Oh, it was great. I actually cried when he died, and I helped bury him. I don't even think that Mel has seen me get that emotional, like, in quite a while. I mean, have you ever?
Only when you had your breakdown when you first moved here. But that wasn't over a death. No. That was just a life change breakdown when you crawled up in your dog's dog bed.
I did. That was because I didn't like where we moved to. It was too people-y.
I believe. I've been there. I lived in that neighborhood.
Yeah,
for a year.
We didn't make it that long. We made it 6 months. And when things get too people-y, I get overwhelmed. And when I get overwhelmed, I cry. It's my
So
response.
you get one of two things. You either cry or you get bitchy.
do. And sometimes they're like at the same time, but yes.
Because you were bitchy last week. And I turned to Aaron, I'm like, we did the right thing, right? Like, we weren't supposed to leave too, were we? And he's like, no, we still had food on the table.
I didn't care. I wanted you to leave with me.
I shouldn't.
I just wanted you to walk out with
But the
me.
service was terrible.
Yes. And it was very people-y. I had an event the day before, a pinup event, Pinups and Pumps. They had an awesome event and I took part of their contest and I got first runner up.
Redneck Rumble,
Heck yeah.
first
And
annual pinup contest.
it was a blast. The girls were great, but there's obviously a lot of people there. And then I went to our football game the very next day. And I just, 2 days of people was just a bit too much to me. And so you could imagine when I moved cross country and then I wound up going into suburbia, it was still just too much people. And so I had a breakdown and I cried, but I don't cry that often. So I cry when I'm frustrated and overwhelmed.
I just get reclusive. Well, like you and I were texting and I wasn't answering every single text because I've got some stuff going on at the
Yep,
ranch. I've got a horse that's deteriorating. She's basically committing suicide by not eating.
I know. Poor
And
Georgia.
yeah, my draft horse. So I don't cry, but I just get reclusive and I just want to be left alone.
But that's also why we're best friends because I don't hold that against you. But yes, I was bitchy. So I was like, I can't people anymore, especially if they're not being polite.
And they're expensive.
I'm not paying $17 for a chicken sandwich.
Or
I don't
the
care who you are.
tater tot nachos. But
I
that's fine. I had to try it once.
hmm
And
But no,
it
I literally walked in. I looked at the menu, saw a $17 chicken sandwich, and I was like,
I'm getting one
nope,
drink. You said one drink and we're
yep,
gone.
nope, absolutely not. I am not paying that. I don't make that kind of income. Like, I don't. I'm sorry. If you didn't know, forensic scientists, we don't make that much money. So, no, I'm not paying that. By the way, eventually we will be monetizing this podcast.
To
So
help a girl out
you could supplement my food,
and my vet bills.
all of this, because we're just trying to ease you into this case because it really
Is
sucks.
it a doozy?
It sucks.
Okay.
Can you tell I've just been like putting it off because researching it broke my heart. Telling it is going to break yours.
Maybe. You know,
So,
I'm heartless.
so we're going to jump into this that I have been postponing as much as possible. And as I said in last episode, where we were talking about Tricky, we are back in Wyoming, about 120 miles from Rawlins, which is where Tricky spent time in prison for shooting that sheriff. Wait, shooting at the sheriff. He didn't actually kill him. And unfortunately, Wyoming has more tragic events. So we've got some South Dakota girls. Sharon Bald Eagle, who's 12. She was hitchhiking.
Bald eagle,
She's Native American, indigenous.
indigenous people, my people.
It is your people.
I
But
have a cool name though.
why don't your mama love you?
My grandma don't love me.
Sharon Bald Eagle, which is freaking awesome. She was hitchhiking with her friend, Sandy Broken Leg, who was 15. I don't know why both of them have those last names. Like, we do know, I should have given you the topic of
Indigenous people.
well, indigenous people and their naming, but it's not only about these two. That's why I gave you abduction. But in the future, I might give you the topic of how they get their names because I don't know how these two got their names, but just remember them. Sharon Bald Eagle, 12, and Sandy Broken Leg, 15. And it's September 19th, 1984. They were picked up along a Wyoming highway in Casper, Wyoming.
I know that town. My friend Kelly
Really?
is from there. Casper.
Well, heck, maybe she knows this case. I don't know, but it did happen in 1984. We were all alive,
Very young.
not very cognizant. And unfortunately, they went missing in Casper. Now, Sandy is a fighter. I'm not saying that Sharon's not, but Sandy makes it. And she was next seen, partially clothed, running from a home in Evansville, Wyoming. She had run to a neighbor and from there told police about what happened. She said that there was a man who picked up the pair, said he would feed them, take them back to his house so they could shower while they ate. But when they arrived, he offered them $100 for sex. Now, they both refused because they both said, we're not those kind of girls. Like, I can respect that. I'm not that kind of girl.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. My dog is not. letting Mel record. She's so sweet, my rebel baby.
She requires all the attention, and I'm here to give it to her.
Oh, she does. And it's very distracting because she really is not letting Mel pay any attention to me, but that's fine. Since they're not those girls, he pulled out a gun and used it to keep them in check. That was when he tied them up with metal coat hangers and duct tape. She was raped by the man. When he fell asleep, she took off to get help. While she was with the neighbor, she heard his truck start up and take off. Let's not forget Sharon's still with him. Evansville police officer Steve Myram, he was on the case, and with the help of the FBI, they were able to track down their suspect, who was Royal Russell Long. He was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. When they searched his vehicle, they found a stuffed frog and a pink toy snake with a bow tie. Keep these in mind for when this tale progresses. These are two toys. Where would you think that you would see toys like this, Mel?
In a child's bedroom.
Where would you obtain toys like this? Just these random stuffed animal toys, like a frog and a snake.
From a fair. Did I get it right?
Look at you go. Like I said, just keep them in mind. When they asked him where Sharon was, remember Sharon Bald Eagle? He said he took her to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and put her on a bus, and that bus was headed to Dallas, Texas. But Sharon's never been found.
Oh.
Now, when they brought up what Sandy said that he had done to them, he stated it was consensual sex for an exchange of money. And after the act, Sandy had asked for $200 or she would accuse him of rape.
It is never consensual if you're an adult on a minor. That
Okay.
is rape.
Not even kidding you. That's coming up. He said that she said, "We lied to you about our ages. And so you've had sex with a minor." How the fuck is a 12-year-old going to pass for a consensual adult? Have you met a 12-year-old that looks like an adult? Because I haven't.
Not in the 80s.
But even now, I'm sorry.
Pretty close now.
Just because we're dinks, dinkwads, dual income, no kids, with a dog.
You and your abbreviations.
Heck yeah, we're dinkwads, dink life. Woo! We still know that a 12-year-old does not pass for 18.
No.
He said after this happened, where she accused him of rape, he said there was a struggle. He did admit to tying them up and threatening them with a pistol. And then he said he took a nap. And when he woke up, Sandy was gone. Needless to say, he was arrested. He was brought back to Casper, Wyoming. And there he was charged with kidnapping to, in the official charge, commit indecent liberties with a minor. To this, he pled guilty and was sentenced to 2 life sentences, January of 1985. But obviously, we're not done yet because this is not a bloody brief.
2 life sentences, even though they didn't find the other girl to this day?
But he admitted to having sex with her. And apparently, kidnapping 2 girls and having sex with them when they are underage as minors, that's life sentence, especially back in the 80s. And by the way, bloody briefs, when we do start monetizing and everything like that, it'll be part of our Patreons where we just give you little snippet cases. It'll be fun, quick, dirty, maybe dirty. Dirty. I don't know. Dirty?
Maybe.
But anyhow, we're not there yet. And we're still just on page 1. There's obviously more to come.
Buckle up.
Royal was to become a suspect in a few other cases around that time and in the area. And we're going to start with Carlene Brown, who was 19, and her friend, Christine Ann, who went by Christy Gross. She was also 19. They went and attended the Little Britches Rodeo in Rawlins, Wyoming, July 4th, 1974. Do you know what Little Britches Rodeo is?
If I were to guess, it would be like a peewee or where they do mutton busting. The little kids jump on the sheep and as if they were bull riding, but it would be sheep.
I would assume it's something like that. You know what the funny thing is? My grandpa called my oldest sister Little Britches because she was so tiny.
Yeah.
My oldest sister is at least 8 inches shorter than me, almost 100 pounds lighter. But she a tiny little thing and she can still kick my booty. And I am trained and she is terrifying.
She's got the street smarts.
Dude, she's got the little people smarts. I'm short little pixie and I'm a pit bull chihuahua.
I love my chihuahua.
So they went to the Little Britches Rodeo, and this rodeo was founded in 1952. It's open.
Do you know what the Little Britches is? Or are you telling me right now?
I'm telling you right now. I mean, I don't go that in depth about it. Okay. It's just a rodeo that started in 1952 and it's open to people ages 5 to 18.
Okay.
So it's basically like intro to rodeo.
Like high school rodeo.
Yeah,
Junior high school rodeo.
exactly.
We have that nowadays. We
Okay.
don't call it Little Britches, though.
Well, this one I think is still active, Little Rich's Rodeo. It's just really cute. There were zero leads to these girls. They went missing after this Little Britches rodeo. That is until later when Christie's body was found 3 miles from Sinclair, Wyoming on a field on October 27th, 1983. Yep, we're both October babies. So anytime I mention October, we're both going to be like,
We're like waiting. What's the day? Is it our
yeah.
birthday?
I do have a case coming up where something happens on my birthday.
When I listen to other podcasts, I'm like, that's my birthday. I'm
Right.
celebrating.
As we can math it, October 27th, 1983 is 9 years after they went missing, which was July 4th, 1974. She was skeletonized, but it was obvious that she had been murdered by a couple of blows from blunt force instrument to her head. Carlene, still to date, has never been identified. Now, I don't say found, I say identified, because this is one of these weird crux of a case. She was adopted. Her biological family, nobody knows who they are. And that's because in the day, like you could have those, what's it called, sealed adoptions. And in order to get the records unsealed, you have to have either party consent to unsealing it. Well, they don't know who one of the parties is and the other one's dead. So nobody can unseal it. Now, this other party might not know that the person that they gave up is a possible homicide victim. So why would they admit? Because if they unseal it and it's not this homicide victim, then they have this child that they gave up that they don't want contact with, contacting them because it's been unsealed. So it's really like this weird, I don't know how to explain it, convoluted. I don't know what words I'm looking for, but possibly now with genealogy becoming what it is, there might theoretically be a possibility that some distant family member is going to come up to her if she ever was recovered as a Jane Doe. Unknown if she's ever been found, but she definitely has never been identified, but they do have her dental records just in case. So that is something that they do have. But because of this whole adoption, it's kind of wonky. And the other problem is her adoptive parents divorced before she went missing. And she lived in Rawlins with her father and her brother because her mother lived in Colorado. So the family wasn't even together when she went missing. And so, like, the records still are more wishy washy because this is the 70s. I am sorry if you can hear my dog barking. She doesn't normally bark like ever, and it's concerning me, but I'm hoping it's just lightning. She doesn't like thunder like at all. So hopefully that's what it is and not somebody at my door. I live in the middle of nowhere. So if somebody comes up to my door, it needs to be intentional.
Are you expecting an Amazon?
I'm not. If she barks again, I'm going up. But anywho, when you live in the middle of nowhere and someone randomly comes to your door,
High alert.
high
Right
alert.
away. We have a friend that showed up unannounced and then walked through our back door one morning.
When I
He
come
lives in the city, so he doesn't know how it works in the country.
It's true. This is my best friend, and I still notify her when I'm coming over, and she notifies me. So I have an ETA. She would be walking through my door, except for we have everything like key coded because my former owners of my house are, I don't know how to say this, fucking crazy. They're fucking crazy.
No boundaries.
None at all. We've owned this house for over a year, and she still texts me to ask if she could come onto the property for random ass things, like showing me where flowers and bushes are. Yeah. Yeah.
The season's over, honey. Like everything's dying now.
And not to mention the
Yep.
fact this ain't your house.
Let it go.
Let it go. Let it go. Yeah. And she still had a key to the old lock. So we changed out every single lock. And that is why our doors automatically lock. Moving on, there is another missing 15-year-old girl named Deborah Ray Meyer. She lived with her family in Red Lodge, Montana. They were off visiting relatives in Rawlins. So, see how all of this kind of connects to the tricky one? It's all Rawlins, Wyoming. On August 4th, 1974, she had planned to go for a walk to the movie theater to see a movie, but she never arrived and she was never seen again. She was known to have had a full set of false teeth. Dental records would have been difficult. For some reason, there's like nothing on her. You know me, when I research these cases, I go deep dive, level like page 12 on Google, I try and see if there's trial transcripts, books, like any of that stuff. And that is all that is written about her. And it like breaks my heart. But she's on, I want to say the NamUs, which is that missing persons website. And that's where I got that information. And another one that is theoretically connected to Royal is Jaylene Banker. And she was 10. She went missing after the Carbon County rodeo, and she had become separated from her friend on August 23rd and failed to return home at 10:20 p.m. that night. Her parents were worried and notified authorities at 11 p.m. She obviously was supposed to be home. She's 10. Authorities actually snapped too. The Carbon County sheriffs were helped by the Rawlins police and the fire department, along with volunteers, but there was no trace of her. Plane searches again, nothing. Police in the area told people that lived there to start searching their trash cans, their garages, their outbuildings, thinking that maybe she was stashed in one of them. Me having the job that I have, yes, I have found, not found, I have worked on cases where people were in, I guess, a barrel in a closet. I had one in an outbuilding and somebody had put up drywall to cover.
Were they in a barrel like acid or
They poured a bunch of bleach
okay?
and then it was like taped and then it was put in a box and then that was taped and then there was a bunch of incense.
I have some barrels on my property we haven't opened yet. I'm scared.
I would recommend it. I covered on Vintage Homicide. Sorry, I know I said that it's raining. It still is raining, and my dog is like super wet and just came running to like give me love. But I covered Bella Kish, which is spelled Bella Kiss, Kiss, but it's pronounced Kish. And he had left bodies in barrels in his yard and then took off. And so people that had these abandoned barrels, they popped the top and the smell was so atrocious that then they realized it was, he did one of them like Lonely Hearts type killers. So he'd put ads in the paper and the women would show up and he would kill them, steal everything from them and put them in barrels property.
Ugh.
So again, I'm not like meaning to plug Vintage Homicide. It just keeps happening because I did cover a case like that. The body in a barrel that I had, it was bleak. It was not a pleasant smell. I'm gonna
No, I
like
can't
to tell you
imagine.
that right now. But when they were saying like check the outbuildings and stuff like that, you know if there's a crime scene there, if there's a body there. I check my outbuildings, especially if I'm starting to smell some decay. We live in the middle of nowhere. There's sometimes some dead animals and you got some decay. And I am totally that girl that drives around with my windows down and I give a little sniffy sniff. And if I'm starting to smell decomp, I stop and see if it's a body.
And you said that the smell, now I've smelled a lot of animal decomp, but you said like humans have a sweet smell to it.
Sickeningly sweet. That's the way I can describe it. So I remember vividly, I was a younger kid driving through Hawaii because my family, I have more family that lives there in Hawaii, and we were visiting, and they have these like papaya forest. And when the papaya drop and they rot, it's a sickeningly sweet smell.
Right. Like fermenting.
That's what human decomp smells like. Now, the weird thing is that most people don't know is dependent on your lifestyle, you actually smell different as you decompose. And so, like an alcoholic starts smelling sour, an obese person smells kind of greasy, an older person would smell a little bit, I don't want to say musty. You know how if like you have a closet full of a bunch of old clothes and you haven't
Mothballs.
opened up that closet in a while? Yeah, yeah. Older people do smell like that and a little bit of bad breath, like they're a mixture. There's obviously more, but you can kind of tell what lifestyle people have had based and maybe that's just me that can tell the difference. Yeah, definitely all of them are sickeningly sweet. When you have gotten sick off of eating too much dessert, too much candy, and you feel like you're vomiting, and then somebody puts like a candy bar in your face and it just makes you want to puke, that smell of that, that's decomp.
That reminds me of the one time I had too many kamikazes, and then that smell of that drink
Hmm.
again made me want to throw up.
Okay, that's decomp. How you get like just a little bit nauseated
I'll
because of that
never
one
drink
smell.
that drink again. But riding around in my 31 Ford, I looked cool that night, according to my friend Kelly. Hanging out the window,
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that I know what this is, but I absolutely and both of our husbands have come across a body disposal site while hunting.
hunting.
So we've had that too. And I maybe it's because my husband heard me say so many times, like if it's sickeningly sweet, decomp. Like animal decomp is more musty.
Different.
It's because they eat a lot of roughage. And so animal decomp smells kind of like I said, musty and earthy. So it's different than human.
So my mom and dad are retired Los Angeles Police Department.
Mhm.
And I remember my mom saying when they'd show up to a crime scene, they would on the stove start to burn coffee grounds to try to, I know it doesn't mask it, but that's what they did in the 80s and 90s. They would burn coffee grounds because they didn't really get the call until a wellness check
Yep.
was called in. So that person had been dead for quite some time.
Yep.
And then also, like, they'd have cheap cigars they would light
Yes, I do
to
know about
try to do
that.
that. But I know you've said in the past that smell of decomp covers your whole body. Like, it gets in your nose hairs
Uh-huh.
and, like,
Your hair, your eyebrows. And here's the thing. One, you're not allowed to alter crime scenes by burning coffee grounds or cigars anymore. You will see on shows, do not ever do this. The vapor rub
yeah,
under your nostrils.
yes,
Can I tell you, that is
it
like,
just mixes both
oh
smells.
no, it is baselining it because it opens up your nostrils and now you are getting minty decomp baselined into your sensory
It's
organs.
unfiltered,
Just
straight to the head.
do not ever do that. It will not help you. I don't care what anybody says. Sometimes I would put on a mask and I would chew minty gum and that would help. I had a coworker that used lavender essential oil and she put that on the rims of her nostrils. But I just learned you can like here's the way I equate it that
You just shave your nose hairs?
no, because it's not just that. Like it just baselines into you. But almost everybody that will be listening to this has gone to a zoo at least once in their life. And then you have like the monkey habitat. And you walk into this little area and you know how like they smell funky. I mean, come on. They've got fecal matter. It's not like they're bathed. They're musty. They're funky. It's the monkey habitat. The longer you stand there, eventually you don't smell it anymore. So you go nose blind. So what I used to do is I would
Like people with cats in their kitty litter boxes.
exactly. So that's exactly what this thing is. So what I would do is I would go into a decomp scene and I would just start breathing deep. I know that sounds really counterintuitive, but then you just go nose blind. And as long as you don't go back outside, you're fine. I had no, it was to the point where like my coworkers were looking at me like I was psycho because I had no problem breathing in these scenes because I would ensure I went nose blind as soon as possible. Not a problem. We would have people like I know that everybody here knows now what an N95 is, and then we would also have respirators. I would be in there with some of them cloth masks that we were all wearing during COVID-19 and not having a problem because all you have to do is just breathe deep, just like you would if you had a kitty litter box.
That's smart.
I just always have equated it to that. And, any of my trainees, I told them to do the same thing. And I only had one trainee that I vividly remember. We were at a decomp scene and he was like, we're like, you okay? Like, are you sure yep, just got a tickle in my throat. No, but it was fine, but that's the only one that I've ever had, and he was fine at every other scene I went to with him. It was just that one. I know we've gotten on a huge segue. Again, this is kind of a short case, so what does it matter? And this is why you listen to us.
You got the insider details that you don't get to hear with other friends. Like I am so blessed to have a best friend that's a forensic scientist because I love that shit.
Well, and I've got a best friend who's a cop's daughter who's not grossed out by the shit that I talk. So it's a win-win here.
Desensitized.
We are. So yes, what the police were telling everybody to do is just go around and basically start sniffing their outbuildings and things like that. Unfortunately, nothing. There was nothing. There was no leads. There was a reward of $10,000. Again, this is what year? 1974, $10,000.
Hell yeah, brother.
It was put up by the family for any leads, but no one called in any tips, which is so crazy. And so it went nowhere. I saw in one report that she was found 8 months later. That's Jalen Banker. I know we went on a huge tangent. So we're talking about Jalen Banker, who's 10. I did read in one report that she was found 8 months later on April 24th, 1975, and she had died from a blow to the head and she was partially clothed. But most other reports say that she was never found, but she does have a headstone saying that she died in 1974 because I deep, 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 deep dive. And so, yeah, she does have a headstone. And yes, I found it. And headstone does say died in 1974, but it also says she was never found. So do with that what you will. Now, this next part to me seems like Royal most likely was responsible for what happened, even if he was not responsible for the four that we just went over. And that's because this one, I swear, it's almost like an instant replay. Okay.
So we have a serial abductor.
Yeah. So like I said, one of the girls was never found, assumed dead. The other girl was found, having been tied up, raped, and then escaped. Then we have four that are just completely missing.
The one that didn't make it home from the rodeo, that's 10.
Yeah, may have been found, maybe one report and a headstone. So now moving on to this final one, we have two 13-year-olds. We've got Cinda Hallett, I hope I say that right, and Charlotte June Kinsey. They went missing September 26th, 1981. We're in the 80s. This is at the Oklahoma State Fair. It was their first time going alone. They were super excited. Think about when we were 13. You and I went ice skating. Your mom dropped us off. We went ice skating at a mall that wasn't even in our town, that was the next town over.
Yeah, super sketchy town.
Yeah, it was a sketchy town. She dropped us off to go ice skating in the middle of the mall.
Yep.
And she wound up picking us up hours later. This is just what you did back then. We were, what, 13 when, yeah, it must have been right around then.
13, 14, just before you're like, right when you're interested in boys. That was the same place. That's where I started my shoplifting spree.
Is that when I stole that little black book keychain
Probably
from
but I would
Claire's
steal.
because of you?
I was a bad influence on you, but I would steal makeup samples.
I remember
We
that.
wear big flannel,
Yes.
and then I would try it on, and then it would slip down my sleeve, and then I would close it and walk out. Well, it wasn't until Santa Clarita is where they caught me.
Daughter of cops. I remember that.
Yeah.
This is like the best thing about this podcast is when we reminisce like this and I remember things. Here's my thing. I have the memory of an elephant. I remember so much, but it takes a little trigger for me to remember certain things. And I'm like, I remember vividly that night. You're the reason. I remember this little keychain and it was called the Little Black Book. It keychain size, little tiny book with a bunch of blank pages. And I walked out of Claire's with it and I felt so guilty. I walked back and paid for it. Oh, that's my good little girl. Like,
That's sweet.
all right. Like I said, they're teenagers. They're alone. They're excited. They're like, freedom. It's a fair in the 80s. 5 p.m., Charlotte called her house to tell her mom that she and Cinda were actually offered jobs by a carnival worker to unload stuffed animals from his truck for one of the games. Remember how I told you that truck was found with some carnival animals? She agreed to call her mom again at 9 p.m. to check in, and Cinda was told the same time when she called her mother as well. So both moms agreed. They're like, go make your money. You're moving toys from one spot to another. It's fine. Go ahead. Charlotte was spending the night at Cinda's house. Cinda's mom were going to drive them back to her house. So Cinda's mom needed to know what time to pick them up. And that's why they agreed to call at 9 p.m. to check in to tell them where they were going to be when. Neither daughter ever called their families again. They were last seen at the fair at 5:30 p.m. at night. And when the families didn't hear from them and they weren't seen, they called the police to report them missing. The police went to the fair and they had undercover officers. So plainclothes, walking around the fair, trying to do like a little search. The family actually set up a booth there as well. So like an information booth about their missing daughters. I thought that was kind of cool and unusual.
That same night?
I think it was the next day.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody reported that they had been seen. They were able to determine through asking around all these people and figuring out what happened that they were last seen with a man in his late 30s. He was over 6 feet tall. He was between 200 and 250 pounds with gray streaks in his dark hair, and he had facial hair.
He sounds hideous.
What are you wearing, Jake from State Farm? A red polo and khakis? That sounds hideous.
Exactly.
He also was seen wearing glasses, and then he was either in a striped or a plaid shirt with cowboy boots and a janky ass cowboy hat. You know which ones I'm talking about.
Nashville. Yeah, I know a little bit about hideous wannabe cowboys and cowgirls. Broadway girls alone. Okay.
I was also wearing a belt that had the name Joseph embellished on it. So, like them leather belts that have like the impressed.
On the back, they stamp them.
Yeah. I know my husband has one from when he was a tiny little kid,
I have my mom's.
and he was seen driving a tan Pontiac Grand Prix with South Dakota license plate. And he had actually been seen offering numerous children $5 to $10 an hour to help him. Stranger danger. Eventually, after everything's going on, two boys came forward. Lance Rumsey, and another boy that I could not find his name. The only reason that I know the Lamps, why can't I say
Lamp.
the only reason that I know the Lance one is because he was in official records. Both the boys say that they were with the girls when this man drove all four to a truck stop off I-40. We know that interstate where the truck was seen. This is where the truck with plushies were. So all them stuffed animals. My nephew had to tell me what a plushie was, and now I can't stop using it. The problem is the truck wasn't there at the truck stop that they pulled up to. So the man said, "Okay, boys, get out. Go ahead and wait here in case the truck pulls up. I'm going to take the girls to the next truck stop to see if there was some sort of misunderstanding and see if the truck is there. If it happens to be there, I'll come back and get you." But he said, "Here's $10, like just for your troubles," to the boys. And then he drove away with the two girls in the truck. That was the last time that they saw them. Now, they had said this man was wearing a yellow badge, and this badge was found later with the name Donald Michael Corey. He was a 36-year-old carnival worker who was a drifter, but he did resemble the man that the boys had encountered. Police charged him with the girl's abduction, but those charges were dropped when it was determined that he was not involved at all. Somebody had taken his badge. Now, after a reward was put in place, there were sightings of the girls nationwide and even one sighting all the way in Germany, but nothing panned out. And Will Russell Long, when I say he resembled the sketches, I'm going to put it on our socials, or you will. It almost looks like somebody sketched a picture of him from a picture. Does that make sense?
You're spot on.
Exactly. Looks just like him. And as already stated, he worked carnivals. He was a long haul trucker. He would have been going to the truck stops. He had the toys in his car. And he admitted to going to that fair either the day of or the day following the girls went missing. But he said, "I was not involved." He did have a history of sexual violence against women and was accused of molesting his daughter, who said she had seen him trying to lure young girls away before, as well as stating she knew her father was not sexually attracted to anyone over the age of a teenager because that's when he stopped molesting her.
Oh my God. Yeah, done deal. He's done.
Police did find the Pontiac. It had been rented by Royal in El Paso, Texas. There was a witness that said she saw the girls with him September 26, 1981. The vehicle was searched. 3 hairs were found in the trunk from the scalp matching Cinda. Animal hairs matching her 3 dogs and 1 cat were found in the trunk as well. There was a blonde hair present as well. There was a bloody boot print and other bloodstains visualized with luminol, which was invented in 1902, and it was named luminol in 1934, in case anybody was wondering. And we don't use it anymore. We use a chemical called Blue Star.
That's good to know.
Yes, it's because luminol is carcinogenic. You would have to wear a full face respirator and everything like that when spraying it. It had to be pitch black. You had to set up a camera on like a little time lapse. Now with Blue Star, not carcinogenic. You spray it, it glows a lot longer, a lot more intensely. You can photograph it quite well. Blue Star's better
Huh?
and really easy to make up. We don't use luminol anymore. But anyhow, they used it then, and that was on the mat in the trunk. And this showed like the shape of the luminol luminescence, whatever you want to, it's a chemiluminescent reaction. The glow was in the shape of either 2 small bodies or 1 large body, like kind of curled up. You know what I'm talking
Like
about?
silhouetted.
So it was either 2 bodies or something in the middle bleeding on both sides, is what the shape was. For some reason, even though I know for a fact you could do a precipitin test to show this. Done it before. They say they were unable to determine if this was human or animal blood. This is a lie. Really easy to do. A precipitin test. It's like telling somebody if you're A, B, O, like I'm B positive blood. What are you?
I thought we went over this before that I don't know what kind of blood I have.
Yeah, I'm calling you out on the podcast about it. And why don't you know what type blood you are?
because I didn't go to the doctor. I recently got my blood drawn because my arthritis to check for rheumatoid,
Hmm.
but I never got the results.
And what else don't you do that they would tell you what your blood type is?
Get a tetanus shot.
Okay, I made you get one of those. Working on a fucking ranch and you don't have a tetanus shot? Blood donation.
Oh, yeah, I don't do that.
I'm in the gallon club.
Nope.
I've donated almost 3 gallons of blood over my lifetime.
Want a gold star?
No, they give you a pin. I have a pin.
And a cookie?
Lots of cookies.
No,
Sure.
I don't give blood, even though when I did do it a few months ago, it didn't feel as bad as I remember as a teenager.
Oh, it's so
I
easy.
was a big girl. I didn't even ask for an infant needle. I got a normal needle.
Dude, my veins are so big you could see them from there. You can hit me across the room.
Could hit you from across the room.
Shut up. But I donate so much it almost looks like I have track marks on my arms because they use such big needles.
Are they going to your toes now?
Oh, my veins are amazing. But because they use such big needles, because I have such big
Oh,
veins,
God.
it actually leaves scars, but it's fine. I call them, they're my little war wounds. It's fine. Precipitin test functions a lot like that, where you can tell if it's animal or human.
So
So
when did they develop that test?
I want to say in the early 1900s, again,
So they
not,
would have had it back
yes.
then.
So not to plug this again, but I did do an episode on vintage homicide about this. One of the first cases, I want to say Ludwig, can't think of his name, but he killed some two little boys in the area. He was a butcher. So they tested his apron and they were like, he was like, oh, yeah, I just butchered some animals. So they were like, okay, we're going to test the apron. They were like, this is human blood, not animal blood. He was like, needless to say, he was found guilty of killing the boys. So this was early 1900s. They have means. We still have means. You can tell if it's human or animal, but they said that they didn't. Whatever. We're just going to let that go because you're about ready to get pissed off because it doesn't even fucking matter. Now, they did search his home in Wyoming and they did find a lock of blonde hair, but because there was no roots, they could not definitively say that it was Charlotte's or Cinda's. He was charged with their abduction and first degree murder while he was serving his sentence for Sharon and Sandy's abduction. 3 years and 11 months later, he was in Oklahoma to face charges at the age of 49. He pled innocent with his attorney, Mike Gassaway, and DA Bob Macy. I almost just said Bob Marley because it looks the same. That was all in Oklahoma. He had 180 days to prosecute this case. So, because he was already serving time in Wyoming, they basically said, you can go to Oklahoma. We will give him to you, Oklahoma, for 180 days. Regardless of the outcome, he goes back to Wyoming to finish his sentence. There was a hearing that October to determine if they could take Charlotte and Cinda's case to court, but the judge dismissed almost all the physical evidence, would not allow the testimony by his daughter, would not allow testimony from a snitch that happened in jail, would not allow any evidence that connected him to Sharon's case to be presented at this trial. Lance, the boy that said that he was with the girls when they were abducted,
Yes.
he could not testify because he had been hypnotized to find out what he knew during the investigation, which they say made him partial to suggestion, according to the defense. So he was not allowed to testify. The judge also dismissed all the charges of kidnapping. This was because he thought there was no evidence that the girls were confined by him. Being put in a trunk is not confined, according to this judge. You know,
Good job, Oklahoma.
mhm. So prosecution thought the same thing I did and appealed, and they won. Royal was offered a plea to serve his sentence in Wyoming if he admitted where the girls were. What do you think he said?
But he doesn't know where they are.
He said no. The judge accepted the defense request to dismiss the case, which was done December of 1985. And as he was leaving the courtroom to go back to Wyoming's custody, he whispered something to the girls' families. And when they asked the families what he said, they said, quote, only I know where the bodies are, and I'm not talking. And if he was telling the truth, he took it to his grave because he died from a heart attack in 1993. That is the case
I
of
hate
Royal
that.
Russell Long.
I hate that he doesn't give the families peace.
No closure, nothing. 6 girls that are believed to be tied to this man. They're missing. Obviously, Sandy's life is changed for absolutely ever. I didn't read any further on her. I believe in giving her adult anonymity. what she went through. I don't need to dig it up. I'm sure anybody could find it, but I'm not going to do it. But all the rest, nothing. They were never found. Well, wait, one of them was found. Christy. Jalen was maybe not found, but Christy was found after she went missing, 9 years after she went missing. So yeah, I told you that was going to be a bummer of a case. Then it did kind of piggyback because it involved Rollins, Wyoming a bunch and rodeos, but I did tell you it was a bummer of a case, and that's why I was delaying talking about it.
Yeah, it's deep. I feel a little sad right now.
I'm sorry.
I think I need some more wine.
Yeah. And boxed wine because I'm
Boxed
classy like that.
So you have a government job.
Government doesn't pay well. Hopefully you enjoyed like a couple of little segues in between. So that way it's not a total bummer. But yeah, if this wasn't too much for you, join us next time. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
The views and thoughts expressed in this podcast are ours alone and do not represent the thoughts or opinions of anyone else. The information presented is for general information purposes only. We are not liable for anything you do with this information.